Hello and welcome back to the Legal Cheek podcast. My name is Julia Sanislow, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely colleague and fellow writer Ryan Scott. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, hi everybody.
There's a bit of an arms race going on in the legal sector at the moment, and it's to no one's surprise that AI is once again dominating even this conversation. We can't escape it. Over the last few years, and especially intensifying over the last couple of months, legal AI providers, in a bid to hoover up as many law firm clients as possible, have been deploying a number of curious strategies, ranging from strategic partnerships to very, very funny brand deals. Ryan and I are here to give you a little bit of an explainer on this very strange world of legal AI and to give you some insight into some of the developments which have occurred over the last couple of months. Quick disclaimer before we begin, there are, of course, lots of different legal AI providers operating within this space, but there are undoubtedly a few which dominate the market, and those will be the topic of our conversation today. So, speaking of big cheeses, Ryan, who runs the legal AI space?
Yeah, so there's quite a few incumbents that we often see in the headlines and we at Legal Cheat report upon. I think we'll start with the most natural one, which is Harvey. Harvey is the market leader. They're the biggest and kind of most hyped legal AI company right now. It was only founded back in 2022, and it was founded by a lawyer and an AI researcher who was working together on it, named after Harvey Specter from Suits. Um, But since 2022, it's got an absolutely insane valuation. It's the highest valued legal AI company in the world. I think as of March 2026, it was worth $11 billion, which is mental because back in February 2025, it was only worth $3 billion. So over the course of the just over a year, it's almost quadrupled in evaluation. In evaluation, in its evaluation. There we go. Um, it's also been adopted by so many like big firms. So I've seen some statistics that say it's used by over 60% of the AM Law 100, which is the 100th biggest American law firms or firms in the US. Some of the firms we deal with is like, Shearman, Slaughter and May, Asher, CMS, McFarland's, Eversheds. They've all got Harvey. They've all licensed Harvey, but it's also being used by non-law firms as well. So asset managers like KKR and Bridgewater Associates, and also a lot of professional services firms like PwC. I mean, PwC does have a kind of a legal arm here in the UK, so it might be used for that, but it's also used by just other companies as well for their in-house legal teams. I believe Procter and Gamble is another one who uses it. Um, so what does it actually do? I mean, so quite a lot of what we'll cover here, the other companies, they all have similar sorts of kind of um ranges of functions and an ambit of functions. So it does legal research, drafting, due diligence, document review, summarizing information, internal knowledge searches, and it's also got this kind of agentic function to it. So Harvey talks a lot about AI agents. Usually, when we talk about kind of AI prompts, when we think of ChatGPT, we think of putting in a single prompt into the system and then spitting out an output. Whereas with these agentic kind of AI functions, you can get the AI tool to do a multi-step task, which is kind of more complex that you'd expect to like a human to do. So, for example, if I was a trainee in a due diligence exercise and I wanted the AI to review a contract, I could put the contract into the AI, say, review this, point out any kind of risks to me that should flag in a due diligence report. Simple. But then I'd have to do like for kind of each and every contract in the in that discovering the due diligence process that's in the data room. Whereas with these agentic AI functions, you can get it to do this multitask function. So you'd be like, can you review all the contracts in this entire data room, identify the risks, draft a due diligence report off the back of that, and then prepare a client email summarizing all of these risks. You can get it to do all of that in kind of one prompt. So it's much more advanced. Um, One of the sort of issues or benefits of that, depending on how you see it, is that it can effectively, in some senses, replace the function of a lawyer rather than work alongside it, which is where Legora somewhat comes in. From what I can see, Legora seems to be branded more as kind of like an assistant to what lawyers actually already do. So it works alongside them. It's much more collaborative rather than trying to replace them. It is the second biggest legal tech company in the world, and it's got a much bigger presence in Europe and the UK Magic Circle market than I guess Harvey does. It's a Swedish startup, and like Harvey, founded by two Swedish, I think, computer scientists. There was no lawyer kind of involved in its in its founding, in its building, I guess. But it similarly has experienced huge growth for the last couple of years. So in May of last year, it was only worth 675 million, and in March of this year, it was worth 5.5 billion. So that's like almost increased tenfold. It's insane. Some of the big firms that are using it that we all know of is Linklaters, White and Case, Bird and Bird, Cleary, Goodwin, Mishcon, Taylor Wessing. A lot more kind of based in the European and kind of the UK market. Um, so it has a lot of similar functions, I say, like drafting, reviewing documents, summarizing, comparing clauses, searching internal firm knowledge, but it integrates very well with the systems that are usually already in place at these law firms, like with Microsoft Word and things like that. And as I say, it's positioned to work with lawyers and be more collaborative and assist them rather than replace them like agentic AI might. It's also very user friendly, apparently. So quite a lot of law firms do prefer that nature of it. And I suppose there is something to say in regards of senior lawyers who haven't grown up with this technology might not be as familiar with it. So having that kind of user friendliness might be preferable to Harvey's inherent non-user friendliness, perhaps. I haven't experienced either of them, so I won't be able to comment on kind of how easy they both are to use exactly. Um, and then there's just two more I want to whiz through. There are quite, as Julie says, there's so many in this field that you could talk about. You could be on for hours. Like it's a new legal AI startup popping up every day. But a major one we've covered recently is Anthropic, which is a little bit different. Anthropic's not technically a legal tech company. It's an AI model developer. It's like ChatGPT. They're not specifically um, targeting or tailoring their products to law firms. They're producing kind of like the large language models behind it, the kind of the AI models. However, we've seen recently that Anthropic has partnered up with Freshfields. I think this was back in April, just last month. It was in April, and one of the things that I imagine it hopes to do is that Freshfields and Anthropic will work together to create these kind of specialized legal AI tools that are tailored specifically to Freshfields and its existing like kind of workflows and processes. And for Freshfield, it is really good because it gives them access to all these kind of cutting edge AI capabilities. And for Anthropic, it's probably equally as beneficial because it's a great testing ground for their general AI models to be used within a global law firm. And it gives them that kind of entryway into the legal and professional services market, which they don't already have. And one of the interesting kind of dynamics there is that Anthropic not being a legal tech company, just a general kind of AI model developer, that Legora, Harvey, and other legal tech companies use. So Legora and Harvey rely on AI models already. Some of them use ChatGPT, some of them use Anthropic. I'm not sure which is which. Anthropic actually builds those models, so it might be interesting to see if Anthropic will eventually kind of supplant these legal tech companies and itself start doing its own like legal tech division. We don't know. Um, and just finally as well, we've got Copilot. Copilot's is not necessarily legal tech. It's aimed at just being a kind of a productivity tool. It integrates with all of Microsoft's current products. So you've obviously got Word, Outlook, Teams, and Excel. And because of that, it can kind of summarize things for you, write emails for you, help you draft in Word, like contracts and things like that, help write proposals, kind of like responses in Teams, etc., etc. It's just a general productivity tool rather than solely focus that doing legal tasks or improving legal workflows. That said, it's one of the cheaper ones to integrate within a firm because it's just kind of this more general productivity tool. It's also easier to integrate because firms generally use like Microsoft Word and all these Teams and Outlook already. So people are quite familiar with it, and it's just kind of like soft launching, if you will, AI into the firm's processes. But yeah, they're the big ones. Obviously, there's LexisNexis AI, which is like legal research assisted by AI. Contract Matrix, which I believe was it was made by A&O Shearman that drafts contracts for you, things like that. So many out there. But I think we'll move on now. We'll just talk about some of the big partnerships that have happened between AI companies and law firms over the past couple months to a year. Julia, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, of course. I think just worth emphasizing here that lots of the clients of these legal tech companies, are these big law firms that are clients of these legal tech companies. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have like a big partnership with them. They just use their services. And a number of firms will have subscriptions, I guess, or if you will, or like packages with lots of different providers. However, what we've seen recently is that a number of firms have announced almost strategic partnerships with these companies that are designed more as like a collaborative project. I think A&O Sherman seem to have been the first movers in this space. Well, they were one of the first clients of Harvey back in the day in 2023. And they've been sort of developing legal workflow tools with Harvey since I think early last year, 2025. So they've been in this space for quite a while. Um, and I think the workflow tools that they were designing with them, they're quite targeted. So they were specifically designed to help with specific practice areas. So they were focusing on antitrust filing analysis, cybersecurity, fund formation, and loan review. And I think the interesting thing about this partnership was that this was going to be rolled out and sold across the firm, but then also sold to clients and other law firms. I think I'll touch on that briefly afterwards, that these partnerships seem to be designed not just to help the firm internally do its own work, but almost, yeah, like a productization of legal AI tools, which have that, input from law firms themselves. So that was, I think, that was announced last year. But more recently, we've seen so many other big firms, especially in the Magic Circle, announce these partnerships. We've had another one announce a partnership with Harvey last month. That's Slaughter and May. So basically, they announced like an exclusive partnership. They rolled out Harvey across the entire firm, and it's going to support, across all of the typical use case areas that you can expect with this sort of tool. So across due diligence, regulatory research, document analysis. But what surprised me is how quickly these all seem to be coming out within, the last year. Lots of firms are quite keen to be like, no, this is our provider. And we've picked our side. It's like the Coke versus Pepsi dichotomy. Other bigger firms, but not quite the Magic Circle, which have announced like exclusive strategic partnerships with Harvey, have been Evershed Sutherland and also DLA Piper. But as Ryan mentioned, Harvey have a massive client list in the legal space. Number of whom also were quite early adopters. I think Ashurst also rolled out Harvey firm-wide back in 2023, and I think Ashurst in particular have always been quite quick to move in the AI space. I think they're quite savvy. But yeah, so that's Harvey. What other firms and AI companies have been announcing their partnerships, Ryan?
I mentioned briefly before, more than briefly, I said about Freshfields and Anthropic. They're working together to develop their own tools, and is it kind of a good thing for both of them? Freshfield gets specialized, like tailored tools to them, and Anthropic gets to be able to test their tools in a global law firm. That's another one. And then you've got Linklaters and Agora, and this is it's quite an interesting one because Harvey is the most the biggest legal tech company at the moment, and Legora is its main competitor. Legora is the second biggest. They've kind of got differing client bases. So Harvey, as I say, is more dominant with the kind of elite US big law firms. Quite a lot of the AM Law 100. Whereas Legora's client base is more European and based in the UK. But by having such a kind of you've got that Magic Circle credibility there by entering into a partnership with Linklaters. Legora's kind of it signals to the market that yes, they are serious competition to Harvey, and yes, they are seriously credible, and they can work well for a global law firm. Like I think it gives them some more kind of oomph behind their names, some more choice between Harvey and them. And as you said as well about Ashurst, Ashurst has their own kind of think it's like a consulting like tech division called Ashurst Advance. And I've read in the past when I was like, doing all my training contract stuff like yonks ago about Ashurst Advance using AI to, as you say, like develop tools for clients. So keeping up to date with European banking regulations that are constantly changing using AI and things like that. And then there's also CMS as well, who I believe their tagline is like law, tax, future, unless they've changed it since I was looking at applying. And that last bit, that future, is all to do with kind of like the consulting-ish arm and like the technological arm of it. So yeah, some of these law firms are making their own AI tools or kind of AI workflows, and then I believe they're licensing them out to clients. So it's just finding these kind of new kind of revenue streams for them, which I think is important, especially when we talk when we everyone talks about how um, legal work is becoming kind of increasingly commoditized. People can do it for cheaper using AI. The role of the lawyer is constantly changing. You can always get a cheaper firm to do it, etc., etc. So finding these new revenue streams is kind of increasingly important for them. And then by them being on top of this kind of AI wave, they are hopefully gonna. I need you to help me finish the metaphor. They need to ride the wave until. I'm not a
I don't
surfer.
know enough about waves and surfing, but they need to ride it to shore. I don't know, something like that.
That works. That works.
Yeah.
They are riding this AI surge to victory. Let's say that. Hopefully, that's the aim, I imagine. Um, but yeah, I think we'll move on to some kind of the big marketing exploits as of recent because there's some interesting ones. Unless you had anything else to add, Julia.
No, no, actually, that's sort of you've nicely summarized it. I think it's a quite mature market at this point, so they're trying to get as much backing as possible because really, as you say, the differences between what they provide, they are there, but they're quite slight. So it's no longer just about the product, it's about
Yeah.
who is giving them credibility. So having a firm from the magic circle back you and say it's going to, for in Legora's case, adopt you fully, then that lends credibility to your name. But yeah,
So,
onto the marketing exploits.
I was going to say, talking about credibility and kind of like
Oh yeah, sorry.
brand awareness. No, it just bounced off the back of what you're saying. With their marketing exploits is kind of somewhat how they're doing it. It's very interesting. So Harvey partnered up with Gabriel Macht, who is the actor behind Harvey Specter from Suits. And obviously Harvey was named after Harvey Specter as well. This was kind of the first that I'm aware of kind of celebrity ambassador slash partnership, or one of them. I think Legora had its name on a Swedish golfer's shirt before. Ludvig Aberg, I believe is his name. But this is kind of the first time they've had a celebrity brand ambassador, I'll say. Um, and for Harvey, it was part of a much broader branding push. So it coincided with Harvey launching their Instagram account. I think it was called Ask Harvey. And Harvey's also partnered with quite a few football clubs in the past couple of months, which I think is quite an interesting move. They've partnered with Paris Saint-Germain and also Fulham FC. With PSG, Harvey's going to be used by PSG's in-house legal team, which is one thing, like getting a license to be able to use it for an in-house legal team. Yeah, that's quite cool. I'm not sure it would be like that much promotion for Harvey back, but also their branding will be displayed at PSG Stadium, Parc des Princes, I believe it's called, and it will also be featured on kind of any broadcasts. I had a look to see if I could find the pictures of it. I don't particularly watch football, but it was just a picture of like Paris Saint-Germain's logo and then Harvey next to it saying like official AI legal sponsor, something like that. It kind of coincides with Harvey trying to expand and commit more to investment in Europe. They opened up a Paris office around about the same time as it. So I believe that was kind of a signal to the market that yes, we are taking Europe very seriously. Um, and then around the same time, they also did a partnership with Fulham, which once again, it's a little interesting that they've chosen kind of a footy crowd to spread their brand awareness to. But I think it also reflects that Harvey is very big with US firms, and it's also big here in the UK at the moment too. But I think with them opening up their London office in 2024, it just continues, like it signifies like a continued investment and commitment to kind of the European market too, as it just continues to expand. Um, and I think the choice of Harvey Specter is interesting. Like, obviously, it was named after Harvey Specter, but actually going ahead and hiring Gabriel Macht as a brand ambassador to play Harvey. I think it kind of reflects how the firm might want to be seen or positioned, perhaps like hyper confident, dare I say, sleek and sexy in the show, on top of its game always, and kind of impossible to best. Like, I didn't watch Suits all the way through. Sorry to be a fake fan, so perhaps something bad happens to Harvey at the end that I don't know. Maybe he dies or he gets struck off or something horrible like that. But as far as I knew, he was very good at his job. Like, he was just super, super witty, quick, good at law. And I think pairing with Harvey Specter gives that sort of impression too, that Harvey is the best legal AI out there. Yeah, and it's just interesting to see that they're moving from enterprise sales to like selling directly to like kind of the techie IT people at law firms, to developing its brand awareness amongst the public, amongst lay people. Saying lay people almost feels offensive, like pejorative. I just mean people who are in the legal profession. Um, I can almost say for sure that if I asked my dad who Harvey is, he wouldn't have a clue, or who Legora is. But it seems like if he watches football, which he does, he'll probably see that and wonder, oh yeah, I've seen that brand before. What are they doing here? It's just weird that they're turning their focus from getting their names amongst law firms to getting their names amongst public. But Julia, why don't you tell us about some more interesting celeb sportsman partnerships that have happened?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'll start with a mild anecdote because this made me laugh. So when I was off for my vac scheme, I obviously did not interact with Legal Cheek or write any news during that period. So I was blissfully unaware of what was going on in the legal world beyond reading the FT and trying to prepare for interviews and whatnot. So I was going home one day from work, and I was walking through Victoria Station, and I suddenly see Jude Law's face plastered on a billboard, and I'm like, oh, what is he doing, another Uber Eats ad campaign or something, or is he in another rom-com? I don't know, right? And to my shock and horror at trying to, escape law and trying to go home to relax, I see Legora plastered over this billboard on top of his face, and I'm just like, what is going on here? So as is clear now, Legora have partnered with Jude Law in a huge ad campaign as part of their efforts to, I don't know, get their brand name out there. And it's not just any ad campaign. It was directed by a very famous Saturday Night Live alum, Rhys Thomas, shot by an Oscar-winning Oscar winner, Hoyte van Hoytema. So it wasn't, I can imagine that it wasn't particularly cheap. And it's this tongue-in-cheek 2-minute long clip, essentially, of Jude Law looking seductively into the camera and saying, I'm going to make sure that you can review your contracts. And it's just like it's very strange. It's quite tongue-in-cheek. It's a little more, I think the Harvey one is quite like, yeah, obviously we're going to do this because we've named ourselves after him. Obviously, we're the best goddamn closers that this town has ever seen, that sort of thing. But Legora seemed to, it almost feels like to me they're poking fun at what Harvey did, because they're going like, yeah, we're just going to get Jude Law in because his last name is Law.
What an excellent gig, by the way, if your name is law, or you just happen to play a TV lawyer, and now you just got this renewed kind of career longevity in
I
this
can't
big gig
imagine
for
how
you.
much money he's getting. It can't be cheap to get someone like Jude Law. So it's fair to assume I know quite a bit about law. After all, my name is Jude Law, or that the tagline is currently "Law just got more attractive." And so what this is, firstly, Legora are in the midst of a massive period of growth, as well, as Ryan said. So they jumped from around 40 employees to 400 in the span of a year. They've been valued at over 5 billion in their most recent funding round, which happened actually, I think, around the same time that the ad campaign released. They've secured investment from Nvidia and other huge investors. So it's all coming together for them. And I think the fact that I saw someone say this on LinkedIn, that when a tech company of this caliber is advertising in the way that essentially a perfume brand normally does, you really know that the market has matured, because this has got absolutely nothing to do with what the product does, despite the fact that apart from the fact that Jude Law is describing what it does. He spends most of the time smoldering. Um, and Legora have also partnered with a number of like sports teams, I think the most famous of which are the New York Yankees. So it's like this competition, for who can be the most provocative and funky, because it's not going to make their product any better. I don't know which one I prefer. I'm not sure which one I find more effective. I think the Legora one's funnier because it's slightly more left field. Which one do you prefer?
I think I like the Legora one. If they lent into the kind of you've almost pointed out there, like it felt a bit satirical of the Harvey Specter one, but I didn't think about that at the time. If they
Yeah,
lent a bit more into that to kind of mock it a little bit more, I think I'd preferred it even more. But I do prefer the Legora one. Also, I don't know if Harvey had kind of a video to go with it. I
I
don't
don't
remember
think
that. It was
so.
just a picture, was it?
They've just given him like a business
A
card.
name, yeah, that's it. And Instagram, or the Instagram account's named after them. But yeah, it seems like they went all out with Legora compared
Yeah.
to
And it's
Harvey.
everywhere. Like it's
Yeah.
in really high traffic places in terms of where they've
Mm.
like put the advert, not just on YouTube or whatever, but just in public as well, which is what shocked me. So it's clearly quite a big drive for them. Um, and I suppose unless you've got like something else to add, we can touch a little bit about how the firms are now relating to these different AI strategies.
Yeah, just before I was just thinking that um it's interesting because I don't think that a firm's IT department licensing these technologies would cost millions, I imagine. I'd be shocked if their IT departments were swayed by a campaign featuring a celebrity, if that mattered to them. Like, obviously, most of this kind of brand awareness is aimed at the public, getting them to know their name kind of a little bit better. Perhaps it matters to kind of the young talent they're hiring.
Or maybe
I
investors.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because they are still private. They're not public yet, but I think even amongst investors who particularly don't know that much about legal technology, if they know about this brand, perhaps they'd be more willing to, I don't know, raise capital. And AI, spending money on developing AI is just it's just a money hungry machine. Like ChatGPT constantly gets these massive valuations, and I mean, ChatGPT isn't massively like profitable yet, but they're hoping that someday like they will be able to monetize it in such a way that there's like this AI bubble everyone speaks about. So I think it's just interesting in that sense, like who they're advertising to and perhaps why. But
Mm,
it seems to be working for them at the moment, so I can't criticize, I guess.
yeah, we'll see how it all pans out. If Jude Law does another video with them, I doubt it somehow. But yeah, not every single law firm, I think it's worth stressing, is jumping to establish these massive strategic partnerships with legal tech companies. So there are a number of different ways that firms are approaching AI, and if you're applying to law firms, it's worth figuring out what that strategy is because it often comes up in interviews and things like that. So obviously, the biggest sort of boldest strat is partnering together to make and develop your own tools, or having an exclusive relationship with a legal tech provider like the ones that we've mentioned. There are also lots of firms that are developing tools in-house without the assistance of like an obvious legal tech company. I think Simmons and Simmons' Percy is the one that comes to mind. So you've got firms that have that sort of strategy, and there are those that are a little more cautious. Lots of firms are currently in the stage where they're testing out lots of different legal AI, but they're not sort of committing to one. I call this the second mover strategy, i.e., you're not the first mover, you're not the first person to jump at a tool. You wouldn't have been A&O Sherman back in 2023 with Harvey. You maybe wait a few years, figure out what works best for you. And so there are those firms that are cautious. Some people have criticized them for being sort of Luddite-ish and not seizing the opportunity to develop and figure things out as quickly as possible, because at the rate that at the rate that AI is developing, in the way that it's used in the legal sector, you really need to, according to some people, grab it by the horns and get on that train as quickly as possible. But others are saying, no, actually, we want to be cautious. We want to figure out what will work best for us and how it will work with our junior lawyers, for instance, who are, as everyone says, at the most risk in terms of their work being subsumed by the kind of tasks that AI can take over. And I think that caution is sometimes advised. And as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, there have been some highly publicized blunders which have related to the use of AI. And so, sometimes jumping too quickly onto any tool without proper due diligence, I suppose, is not the best idea. Ryan, do you want to expand a little on that?
Yeah, I see where you was going with that one. You were talking about Sullivan and Cromwell. Back in last month, they had a bit of a blunder where they had filed court documents, and I believe there was 42 like errors in total, whether they be kind of AI generated legal citations or incorrectly quoted sections of the I don't know, American bankruptcy legislation. I'm not sure what the exact act or legislation or statute or whatever the Americans call it, but it was incorrectly quoted and there's fake case in there. Sullivan and Cromwell admitted to this, and the one of the partners, I think the head of the restructuring and bankruptcy team, wrote a letter to the judge, kind of like admitting the discrepancies and the inaccuracies in their filings, and also apologized to the judge. The partner admitted in the letter that they hadn't followed their kind of internal AI review and verification procedures, and that had kind of led to these 42 errors getting through the cracks. I think why it matters is because this isn't like a small high street firm misusing ChatGPT. This is one of the most profitable firms in the world. I'm sure it's just shortly behind kind of Keckler and Ellis in terms of profit per equity partner. And some of the partners there charge up to like 3 grand an hour, $3,000, that is about £2,000 here, or roughly about that nowadays. So I think it just highlights kind of the risk of hurriedly taking on uh, new AI tools without having the training in place, or perhaps I'm not saying that Sullivan and Cromwell don't have the training in place, but it just stresses the importance of having that training in place and ensuring that everyone at every level understands the importance of verifying and reviewing the outputs of these AI tools, because there are errors and human oversight cannot be kind of understated. Not just in terms of like hallucination, but in general uses, like for just general productivity uses. We spoke before about kind of Copilot and just using ChatGPT in general for work. Maybe you're asking it to draft an email to a client, or you're asking it to review a contract or write a contract. Even though it's often technically correct, not having that human oversight can just mean that not necessarily errors in language, but just like inaccuracies, maybe in like style or the way you're writing, it just feels impersonal or just wrong for the context. And human oversight is really important in that instance. But yeah, it just, as I say, sort to hit the, oh God, I'm really struggling with metaphors and like axioms and adages today. Hit the hammer home. What am I trying to drive the point home? That's it. There we go. That makes sense. Um, just that rushed AI adoption and weak oversight can lead to big issues, and courts are becoming kind of increasingly intolerant of these AI related mistakes. We've seen so many cases of like barristers getting in trouble for relying on AI fake cases in court. So it's just something for firms to definitely be conscious of, I'd say.
No, absolutely. And we are in no way saying that Sullivan and Cromwell are the only firm to have made a mistake in this capacity. It's just that given the largely public nature of it and how large and important they are as a firm, it serves as a stark reminder of how careful firms need to be and how robust their AI policies and procedures need to be. And also that these tools are nowhere near close to being, utterly reliable and able to replace lawyers in any capacity, really. So, despite this mature market that we've mentioned, despite all of these massive brand campaigns and, how many law firms are using Harvey, Legora, or, the fact that Freshfields has partnered with Anthropic and is using Claude all over the firm, it's none of these tools are in a position to be completely infallible, and are not infallible. So it's very interesting to me that on the one hand you have this incredibly extensive push and drive, to get as much investment as possible, and the valuations are through the roof, but on the other hand it seems to be causing quite a bit of trouble. That's not to say that it's not helping. It absolutely is, and AI is getting used daily in a lot of law firms these days. But yeah, robust policy needs to exist in order for it to, function properly, because legal work is incredibly sensitive, and you don't want to get told off by a judge. Again, that does not sound particularly fun, actually. It sounds very stressful.
Indeed, I have nothing more to add. I agree with everything you've said.
No. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. Use ChatGPT and Claude with caution. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you found it lovely and informative. That's a bye from me. Bye.
Bye, everyone.